Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. Monthly Report. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
Okay, we're back here with the National Federation of the Blind, Monthly Indiana Newsline Report. And today we're here with our second segment of our show with the Indiana ASPE. That's the Association of People Supporting Employment First. Employment First. It's a mouthful, and it's a lot of work that they do. They do great things here in the state of Indiana. And we have some services with the National Federation of the Blind. As you know, with the Newsline commercials, the intro of our show, we spoke on access to information. Instantaneously, you can have access to news, breaking news. If there's news that's breaking in California and you want to get that news right now, you can get that news on NFB Newsline as it populates. It's a free service. For those that don't know about this service and it's the first time watching our show, NFB Newsline allows individuals that are blind, print challenged, those with certain forms of dyslexia, even the deaf-blind, and individuals in our community can now have free access to newspapers, magazines. We have international newspapers. We have over 460 national newspapers. We have newspapers in our own and great state of Indiana. These are sponsored through our state Talking Book and Braille library services. These are great services and great tools for individuals. For once in our lifetime, we can now pick up the newspaper, pick up the telephones. You can get it on your landline phone. You can get it on your smartphone. You can get it on the digital talking player from the state library, which is sponsored through the National Library of Congress. You can also get it on a device such as the Victor Reader Stream, those that are aware of that device from HumanWare through the blind communities. So we have a lot of tools to access printed press. In Indiana, we have over 14 newspaper publications, all the way from northern Indiana to central Indiana to southern Indiana, eastern Indiana and western Indiana. So we have a great coverage. The Indiana Business Journal is one of the popular ones also for individuals seeking business information. Our students love to read it for research and keeping up with current events. Our seniors, they love to read it. The most read publication in the newspaper is, the section in the newspaper is the obits, the obituaries. I once had a gentleman say he loves reading it because he can keep up with his friends and families and schoolmates from a city that he was transplanted from, and while he's living in a nursing home, and plus he makes sure that he's not in there. So it makes great reading, and it encompasses it all. So Florence, give us a brief overview of the magazines.
Oh, some of the magazines in NFB Newsline. This is the summertime. A lot of people are getting married and want information, getting engaged. For next year, there's a magazine called Bride for ladies who might want to get some information on honeymoon sites and things like that. And there's also magazines for parents. It's called Parent Magazine. Reader's Digest, there's Consumer Reports magazine. There's also ASPN, Sports Illustrated, Reader's Digest, WebMD, Shape magazine for people who are into fitness and things like that. So again, as I always emphasize, there is a magazine for every lifestyle.
Yeah, and then there's also we got the new edition of the Jet magazine, and we also can read in Indiana the Indianapolis Recorder. That for the first time, you can read the Indianapolis Recorder. Children can read Stone Soup magazine, international magazine, and I tell you, that's a great magazine to read too. So just stay tuned and follow the commercials. It'll let you get in touch with us so that we can get you subscribed to the free service, and you'll enjoy it. Believe me, you will. So we'll take a short break, and we'll come back with our guest from ASPE, Mr. Brian Gilbert and Miss Tina Steele. So we'll be right back.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I am a CFP practitioner, and I happen to be blind. I rely on NFB Newsline to keep me current with Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduced the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline. Experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
We're back with the National Federation of the Blind Indiana Newsline Monthly Report, and today we do have Indiana ASPE with us, and we have the president of the chapter of Indiana, Mr. Brian Gilbert, and then we have the outgoing president and also board member, Ms. Tina Steele.
Skill.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure I had that right.
Perfect.
So let's talk a little bit here about we got a new group of people listening. So let's talk a little bit about what the mission is for the Indiana ASPE.
Sure. The mission of ASPE and Indiana ASPE is really to promote and advocate for quality community employment outcomes for all people with disabilities. So we're really looking at that goal of people working in integrated community settings where people with a disability are working alongside people without disabilities, and that people with a disability are also working at a fair wage, earning the same wage for the same job that their non-disabled counterparts are.
And that right there is a very important fact. We run into a lot of placing individuals with disabilities right alongside individuals that don't have disabilities, so to speak. Fair wages, the opportunities for advancement in the workplace once you get a person in there with a disability. We know within the National Federation of the Blind that we're coping with a law that from 1938 that 14C, as it's called, that gives employers the right to pay people with disabilities sub-minimum wages. You want to talk about how you guys confront that?
Sure, and a lot of that work is being done by National ASPE on the national level. They're really coming out strongly against the sub-minimum wage workshops, and the viewpoint is that those should be completely done away with, obviously, over time, and there would need to be a plan in place, but that even just having those really makes it a lot harder to advocate for that fair wage when that's still out there, where people with a disability are working and getting paid no less than $1 an hour oftentimes, and when we're trying to really make sure that they have the same opportunities that everybody else does.
And Tina, you can jump in here anytime. Florence, talk about this here dire situation that we do have in our country. When we're confronted with 75% or 80% unemployment rate for people with disabilities, and you want to jump in on that?
Absolutely. I think it really goes back to, if you look at Indiana's unemployment rate, it's less than 5%. And we're talking 80% unemployment for individuals with disabilities. We really want to work towards decreasing that disparity there, because if any other group was at 80% unemployment, there would be a major shift. One of the biggest things that we've been doing is trying to really get employers on board. I think there's a lot of fear about hiring somebody with a disability, when in actuality most accommodations cost less than $100, and even the ones that cost more than that, there are options for people to receive, employers to receive assistance in purchasing. For instance, we talked about screen readers in our last segment. They're a little more than $100, but Indiana vocational rehabilitation might be an option for an employer, even that individual, to access, and therefore that's a simple accommodation.
Okay, so now you mentioned 80%.
Absolutely.
Now, is there any particular group that might be a little higher than that? For instance, I'm just going to come right out and say that, for instance, the blind community find it very hard to find employers that might be considered hiring them. So, in your opinion, do you believe that the statistics may be higher for people with blindness?
And this is me personally, believe that it is much higher than even what the statistics say. And if somebody has multiple barriers to employment, it exponentially makes it harder. So if someone has maybe who is blind and may have another disability on top of it, you mentioned hearing loss, it makes it even more compounded for them to be able to get employment. So
Okay.
I do think that there are, I think what you mentioned, the statistics, and Lee and I were talking about it earlier while we were off the air, sharing the information about how hard it is for individuals with blindness, but it is a significant number.
We talk about fairness in the workplace, and you guys are doing a great job here in Indiana with some legislation. You want to talk about the legislation that you guys have accomplished here in the state of Indiana?
Yeah, absolutely. It was last year in 2017, Senate Bill 390 was passed, which it was employment first legislation, which really put that philosophy of employment first into the Indiana code. And it really started several years before that, as groups of us were really talking about how we wanted to approach really advocating for that idea of employment first. And eventually we came to the decision that the best way to lay the groundwork is to have actual legislation, to have the law there saying that this is what Indiana is going to support and move forward with. We reached out, we had a great supporter in Senator Mark Stoops, who worked with us to help author the bill. It took us a couple of years of trying and really figuring things out as we went, but we were successful last year in April of having the legislation passed, and Indiana at the time was only the 17th state to actually have employment first legislation. So it was a proud accomplishment for us, and just showing that in terms of employment for people with disabilities, Indiana is a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and we're really lucky that the bill that was passed encompasses all disability groups. We were really pleased to see that so many partners, NRF, Indiana NRF, ARC of Indiana, disability rights, vocational rehabilitation, all of these partners were part of the process along with providers and individuals with disabilities. So it really was a team effort, and altogether it was about 3 years.
Well, you know, there's been a lot of changes going on with services for vocational rehabilitation in the state of Indiana, and it's and several other states across the country. You know, they deal strictly with employment and education and order of selection. Now, it has eliminated the homemaker from their services, basically. Right. And it's causing a lot of rift or confusion within the community, disabled community, for those that are just coming into disabilities. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back from break. Some of the challenges that we are facing, and as we know, some of the challenges that we're facing in Congress with the ADA and how some business leaders throughout the country are really making it more difficult for us advocates to place individuals with disabilities on jobs side by side with quote unquote individuals without disabilities. We'll be right back to talk about that. So join us in this conversation.
I am a blind vendor, and one of the things that I truly miss is reading Vending Times magazine.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
It is a fantastic service.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
Welcome back to our show with our guest in ASPE. And I have a question concerning, let's talk a little bit more about the order selection and how that affects the disabled community.
Sure. That's done effectively with order of selection. Vocational rehabilitation is just not able to serve the number of folks that they were previously. So they're devoting their resources to serving the individuals that they qualify as the most significantly disabled, and the other categories are put on a deferred list, where it's essentially a wait list for VR services, and that's left a lot of individuals who are counting on those services and supports from vocational rehabilitation now without the services that they thought they were going to have. So a lot of what ASPE is doing is trying to help educate people on what those other supports and services are, and really trying to connect the services with the individuals who now are worried that I'm not going to have that support. Everyone's heard of Voc Rehab. They know they have that option, and beyond that, they're really not sure of what's out there, whether it's Ticket to Work, Work One Centers, Department of Workforce Development, all the other providers that are out there. A lot of people often feel like, well, there's no point in me pursuing this because I can't get those voc rehab services. So that's where, again, we're trying to educate folks and spread the word that there is support and there are other options out there for them.
Okay, now let's say the people who are disabled who just really want to work. Now there is a question that comes up pretty often. If I work, once I find employment, what will happen to my benefits? What if something happens? And there's always a what if. What if something happens and it doesn't work out, or I don't get the services that I need? So
that's a really great question, and it's one that I think Brian and I have both seen personally throughout the years. One of the big misnomers is if I go to work, I'll lose my benefits. There are a lot of resources available, and Indiana has done amazing at creating, it's called MedWorks, which is if you're on Medicaid and on disability, you go directly into a MedWorks program or have another federal status that will help those folks on SSI. So if you're on Medicaid, there are some options out there to help you maintain your benefits while working. Social Security has a number of different work incentives. For individuals who are blind, there's the blind work expense, which is a tremendous option that will help individuals really work to their maximum level. So there's lots of good news. Going to work, there are lots of work incentives that you can access, and there are people out there that can help you. So there's a system through Indiana Vocational Rehabilitation called a BEN, or a benefits planner. There is also at the Social Security level, they have the WIPA projects all throughout the United States. So if you're joining us from another state or know somebody in another state, those WIPA programs are designed to help individuals who are on Social Security with those questions that you said. And it's not just Social Security, it's every benefit for that state. So
that's awesome. That's awesome to know. And Lee?
Yes.
Now, as far as the ASPE conference, now I know we're coming up, there's one coming up soon, so I know that we're going to get some information about that soon.
Guys are nationally, or I guess with around the globe, you are one of the largest chapters, as well as the convention that you have, or conference that you have, is one of the largest conferences in the nation for dealing with people with disabilities and employment. That's a daunting task for you, I assume.
It can be, yeah. We have our conference coming up this year, November 8th and 9th. Last year, I think, was one of our biggest conferences ever. We had close to 250 attendees last year. But we do have information on the website about how to register for the conference. It's a great way to network and meet providers. We have folks throughout the state of Indiana who attend, individuals with a disability, advocates, people from a lot of different agencies and departments. Great way to just get information, to network. We have a great series of presenters that touch a wide variety of topics that are related to all different kinds of disabilities. We have a great keynote speaker who's nationally known in the field of supported employment, Denise Bissonnette, who's coming to speak to the group and do some presentations. We have exhibitors and sponsors, so we're always excited to have people look at that opportunity to share their information that they may have that would be useful to the attendees of our conference. So it's all on the website. We hope folks will check it out and maybe think about attending or being a part of that.
Now, is there a cost to attend as far as a member of the community?
There is. The two-day conference is $310 for the two-day conference. But if you are an ASPE member, the rate is $250. So that's one of the benefits of becoming a member of APSE and Indiana APSE is a discount on the conference. You also have access to a lot of web trainings and information on public policy and national news regarding employment for people with disabilities, and again, connections to people throughout the disability community and across the country, and as Tina mentioned, across the world, really, to be able to keep up with what's going on and get those tools and resources.
Okay, so for people who are interested in volunteering for APSE, would they just go to your website as well?
Sure, they can go to the website to look for information, or they can reach out to us through the email address that y'all are sharing on the show, and we can reach back out and give them more information on how to become a part of an APSE.
Okay, you know, earlier we mentioned from agency to agency, so there are also information about resources for people that are disabled, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there are.
So we just added a brand new resource for transition age youth. So it's a whole section of our website, and there is a brochure that individuals can download with lots of resources for folks.
Awesome.
Well, that is so great, and we have shared and gathered a lot of information today. And, you know, be sure to visit with the website. We're going to take a short pause and come back and wrap up this show. And we'll be right back in a second or two, so stay tuned.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
As I travel the nation, I read NFB Newsline.
I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I listen to my local news on NFB Newsline.
As a student, I enjoy reading current events on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today. Well, we want to thank Brian and we want to thank Tina. And Brian, share the conference information with us.
Again, the conference is November 8th and 9th at the Marriott East, and please check out our website, look at that information. We just encourage everybody to get involved because that's really how we create change, is through the involvement of everyone in the community.
And I concur with that because working together works. So join us next week on the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana Monthly Report. Take good care and we'll see you then.
The National Federation of the Blind Indiana Monthly Report. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.